Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you hear me. My name's Darren Richardson, and I'm going to jump right into the topic. You might look at this and think, this is a weird slide. You're right, it is. We'll get back to it later. Let's talk about who I am. My name is Darren Richardson. As you may be able to tell from the accent, I was at least originally British, but England was too cold and depressing for me, so I moved to Finland. Like most balding men, I wear a lot of hats. I'm quite a lot of beard. I'm a cybersecurity professional. I'm actually a senior cybersecurity engineer for a company called ICEYE. What that means is I secure satellites and occasionally hack them. I have experience in DevOps, IoT, and I have a weird obsession with penguins, don't ask. I want to talk to you about something that one thing I've actually missed about myself, which is why I'm here. I'm also a PhD student at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland, where I was researching and I came across this idea, the dead internet theory. Hands up how many of you know of the dead internet theory? Oh, a lot of you, so I don't need to explain a lot of this. Basically, the dead internet theory suggests that you are one of the last people on the internet, that the internet is just bots creating content to be consumed by other bots. This started in 2014, according to my notes. I think that might be wrong. I think it's 2016. But at the time, that seemed kind of outrageous, because I've actually spent most of my career working next to AI. And at the time, I was working with natural language processing. I don't know if anyone used that around 2019. It was not in a condition to be creating content. But to see where the theory comes from, we actually have to go back a bit further to the beginning, which is click farms. We have to acknowledge one fact, and that is that your attention is the largest commodity on the internet. And for anyone unclear on how the internet works, it's ad-powered. Maybe it shouldn't have been ad-powered. Maybe we should have redirected it at some point. But right now, it's all built on advertising. I mean, if you just look at Firefox's financial difficulties, Wikipedia constantly asking for donations, you understand that as a company on the internet, you have two choices. You can either sell your users' privacy, or you can ask for handouts. Those are really your two choices. There are edge cases, of course, but I'm not going to get into them because I only have 40 minutes. You should understand, if you're sat in this room, that if you are not paying for a product, you are not the user of that product. You are the product. Your data is the product. Recently in New York City, there was a SIM farm that was discovered quite close to the United Nations areas there, which was capable of sending, it had like stacks of 1,000 SIM cards capable of sending millions of messages a day. This is the internet that you don't see. This is what is driving this. And we have to talk about my favorite subject, which is social media. Social media has been the influence engine for a decade, slightly more. The idea is everyone is on social media. I'm assuming all of us here have some kind of social media account. Hands up if you don't. There's 3 people. 4. Congratulations, you win. You win the internet today. Data is sold based on being enriched. I'm sure we all understand that. If you just have an IP address, no one cares. If you have an IP address and an age, you get more interesting. If you have a gender, you get more interesting still. If you have a location, which can usually be tied to some kind of wealth band, then your data jumps from being sold for cents to being sold for dollars. And that's how the internet works. And that might be depressing. It's only going to get worse from here. We ended up with another cultural engine of 2025, which is the large language model. I'm sure you've all heard of it by now. You're all probably using it. I am. Happy to admit it. I have a question for you to think about, and that is, what were we expecting from AI? What did you want out of AI? For me, it was the great accelerator, because I offload my boring administrative tasks to AI, and I do the cool stuff that I want to do. That's what I wanted. But I also have to acknowledge that this comes with a cost. AI feeds off of our output. This is understood. We put data in, we get data out. And this leads to a potential idea of stagnation of content, where no one's generating anymore anything that isn't made by AI, anything that isn't ChatGPT. So we end up with this weird back and forth. We end up with this potential leveling off point where it can't really get any better because it's only ingesting its own data. It's kind of a weird situation to be in. We ended up somewhere that I like to describe as false utopia. And I'm going to come off slightly anti-corporation in this speech, and I just want to make one thing very clear. I am. And the reason for this is because of this word, open. Who's seen Meta's llama model being touted as open? I think it's a common thing, open. But open means something to this community. Open is open source. It means you don't just say open, oh, aren't we being good? You open up the model, you open up the training data, you open up the weights, and no company's doing any of that. And we come back to this idea of what we wanted from AI. And another thing you should understand is that the trillion-dollar problem that corporations want to solve with AI is you. It's your wages. That's the main problem that people wish to solve with AI. There are two trains of thought, the left and the right. I personally come down on the right. I hope everyone here is here because they come down on the right. But there's this whole idea that we need to keep people in the loop. We'll get to that later. There is another problem. AI must lie. Who trusts your AI? No hands. Very good. You all win the internet today. So we end up in the situation we're in right now, where the conspiracy meets reality. We have the dead internet. There was MetaConnect. MetaConnect is an event where Meta has their robotic CEO stand on the stage and tell what's happening in the world of Facebook. In 2024, I think, he stood on the stage and he proudly announced that AI influencers were going to be a thing. Not a bug, but a feature. That you were going to be able to watch people who didn't really exist talk about things they had never really experienced, and that was supposed to be your entertainment going forward. It just leads to this collapse of trust, where phishing becomes personal. You can impersonate people's families. I've done this by calling my mother with my own voice of words I've never said, and she thought it was me. I don't know who would know me better than my own mother, but that's something that can happen now. In lighter news, there's the Sora 2 video of Sam Altman stealing GPUs from a shelf. That's always a good one. We have this problem of AI potentially generating scams. And these things combined lead me to the incontrovertible conclusion. AI is unethical. Now, there are two things I need to discuss here. The first is, I'm talking about Meta a lot. I'm going to continue. A couple of years ago, 2023, I think, Meta went into a lawsuit because it turns out they downloaded 82 terabytes of books illegally and decided to pump those into their llama model. 12 years before that, a guy called Aaron Schwartz, who downloaded 80 gigabytes of data from an MIT server to share with everyone because he thought that knowledge was important, was arrested and was facing a charge of 35 years in prison and a fine of $1 million. If we apply that to the Meta situation, Mark Zuckerberg would be in prison for 35,000 years and face a fine of $1 billion. But, his species might live that long. So you have this situation. You know what happened to Meta? Anyone? Nothing. It got considered fair use, because why would the Americans shoot their own plagiarism machine in the foot when they would lose out to a Chinese plagiarism machine or an EU plagiarism machine? And then you're all sitting there thinking, but Darren, look at all your slides. They're filled with AI art. How can you stand in front of a slide that says AI is unethical after using AI to generate this? Okay, hands up. Who's thinking that? A lot of people. Some people. Thanks for the honesty. There are two reasons why I'm using AI here. The first, if I didn't use AI, the slides would look like this. And the second is we have to acknowledge something. We're going to get into the use of AI shortly, but we have to acknowledge that corporate social responsibility has failed. Corporations exist as part of an ecosystem that we all live in. Corporations who don't act like that become problematic. And now you're all sat there thinking, well, thanks, bearded giant. Now I'm really depressed. What am I going to do now? I didn't come here just to complain. I do have solutions. I think I have reasonable solutions, and I hope you take some of them away and use them in your life. And the first is accountability, and it's this. You cannot abstract a person out of the equation. I was at Eurostar 6 months ago, where there was a tester whose name I've forgotten. She gave the keynote, and it was extremely good, but she talked about this whole 1 to 10 slider of where are we with the handover to AI, and where should we stop? And she had an idea of 7 out of 10, so you can automate a lot, but then have the person there. You can't get rid of a person. You can't just clear a person away. A person is the most important part of this process. And this is why we have to push for this. This is assistive. This is not replacive. We cannot take the entire... Okay, moment of honesty. How many people have coded something with AI and then pushed it to a repository, made a pull request without understanding what the code does? Come on, someone has done it in this room. You back there, out. No, I'm kidding. You find, genuinely, thank you for saying, because I ran into this the other day when I was looking at a pull request, and I asked the guy, this is nonsense, what's it supposed to do? And he was like, I don't know. ChatGPT wrote it, but it passed the test, so it's fine. That moment made me slightly angry. But, we resolved it, it's fine. But the problem is, we cannot take a person out of the loop. And I have a little slide here, which it has a flow chart. Just, if you're going to take something away from this talk, please let it be this. This is how you keep a human in the loop. I don't know if the conference are providing slides after the fact or if anyone wants to take a photo, but it's this is what you do. You have a prompt from a user, you have the output to a user. I know it's becoming so fashionable to use agents to abstract everything out and never have to interact, but that's when you step into the realm of a problem, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary. But for me, as a security professional, I always want to keep a human in the loop. The idea that a person would not be present concerns me. I mean, not my job security, because the idea that people are pushing AI-assisted code without looking at it, that's great for me as a professional, as a security professional, that's great. If you want to do that, thank you. My mortgage thanks you. But I'm here because I want you to do things well. Because when you do things well, I get to focus on different things. I don't have to tell anyone off. And that's never fun for a security professional to just be like, okay, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And that's not fun. That's not a good part of my job. So consider this. There's also this slide. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to display this slide because I actually switched jobs when in the process of the whole coming to this. So that may be from my old company. So don't take a photo of that. That might get me into trouble. On that subject of trouble, the first time I did this talk, I had this slide. I was at Eurostar and I stood there and I said, if anyone hates this talk and wants to get me into trouble, take a picture of me in front of a slide that says AI is unethical and post it to LinkedIn for my AI forward company, and I will probably be fired. And then someone in the crowd decided it's fine, I work somewhere else now. I have these security gates. The idea is that we have to review raw data sources. We have to ensure that the data is sensible. We have to remove personal identifiable information. We have to remove toxicity. We have to adjust the base model to ensure that adversarial testing exists and supply chain testing exists. We have to talk about pre-deployment, red teaming, evaluation metrics, and we have to talk about the feedback loop because AI feeds on itself, so we have to make sure what's going back into it makes sense and makes our model stronger. And these are 4 security gates you can add into your workflow today. There is another solution I have, which is penalties. Fines don't work. Does anyone think fines work? Anyone? Anyone here? I actually put this in larger text. Fines don't work ever. They don't. I'm sorry. They don't. By the time Facebook coughs up whatever it's been fined for, be it GDPR violations or whatever, it's made 3 times that amount of money. Fines don't work. So I suggest time-based penalties should be in place for AI because it hits the thing that AI development cannot afford to lose, and that's speed. It destroys momentum. And the whole point of this would be to make there an actual punishment that would actually impact anyone to try and get people on the rails. And then there's, of course, AI tagging. The idea of AI influencers just kind of set me off. This is really the reason I'm here, because everything needs to be tagged. Everything needs to be tagged if it has been generated by an AI and whether or not it has been seen by a human. And what should be tagged? I believe everything. Anything that's been touched by an AI should be tagged. Core fields, again, this is just a data dump, timestamp, model name, basic metadata, prompt hash, content hash, IDs, and then privacy tags, user consent, safety review status, generation type. And then now at least 3 of you are sat there thinking, but Darren, you don't have any of these things. But that's not true. Does anyone remember this slide from the start? This slide is exactly what I think we should be seeing at the start of every presentation that contains AI. You'll notice, I think I have a laser here. Let's find out. Well, that doesn't work particularly well. Public web data, some data sets, such as Books3 and Common Crawl, are subject to active legal disputes and were likely included without full consent. This is what we need. We don't need AI pretending to be people. We need AI pretending to be responsible. It should be that simple. But this is nothing new, because we're in the EU. And the EU is actually quite good at a few things. And one of them is regulation. The EU AI Act requires tagging. And you know what happened? The companies just decided, okay, the EU doesn't get these models. They were offered the opportunity to do the right thing, and instead they ducked, they limboed under it. They were like, nope. Instead, no one's getting this AI. Americans can have it, everyone else can have it, the EU, you're going to regulate it, so no. Why is this even remotely acceptable? Why is this a thing that can happen with a technology like this? Now, at this point, I've actually forgotten the word. My imposter syndrome starts to kick in because I start to think, what if I'm wrong? I've been wrong. I've actually made a career out of being wrong in a lot of ways. But the thought I have is that I have a limited number of things I can talk about. I'm a cybersecurity specialist here talking about AI and ethics. And there's a limited number of things I like to talk about, like the difference between gargoyles and grotesques, for example, or penguins. There are things that you might find useful, like tax things and maybe some DevSecOps stuff. I'm clearly talking outside my wheelhouse here, so I like to go down the imposter path. What if I'm wrong? And we have this societal shift, because at the point your non-technical relatives don't feel safe on the internet, do you think they will continue to use it? At the point, one person here definitely thinks they're going to use it. That's interesting. For my money, I feel like at the point people are pointing out AI slop, the point where people are the victim of phishing attacks that are extremely personal, the idea of being face-to-face is going to potentially raise in value. And where does that leave you? The developer of these services that people may no longer be using because they no longer feel comfortable on the internet. So we have a fork in the road. Everyone gets to decide which path they're taking. We can either have a ruin. We can devolve into AI slop and artificial influencers and a lack of humanity connecting these services, connecting these people. Or we can use AI as an augmentation, as an advantage. We can push forward into this idea of a future where things are easier and we can focus on the parts we enjoy. And the people who get to choose that are you. So I just ask you to consider this as a final thought. The people who stand to lose most from the dead internet are the people whose livelihoods depend upon it. Thank you. I don't know how long that came in, but I'm pretty sure we have a moment for some questions. 17 minutes. We have 17 minutes. Okay, we have a time for a lot of questions. Go ahead. Anything you want. Hi.
Hybrid content, how would you tag that?
Hybrid content.
When you generate an image, it has sources that it used for training, so that would be the human part of that, but like for code generation?
I mean, this presentation was in a way hybrid content. It's full of human written knowledge supported by AI art. It was tagged. The very first slide was this presentation being tagged. Ah, okay. Does anyone have a different question? Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead.
The other question was the penalty. When you penalize the AI developers or researchers, you slide behind China. How do you circumvent that?
Why would we circumvent it? The whole point of that penalty, it's not like you would punish an entire country. You would punish a company. The company would fall behind everyone else, including Chinese developers, including other European developers, including American developers. It's not like an entire country or like an economic area like the EU would be penalized. They would lose time, and frankly, they deserve to. That's why it's a penalty. Yeah, of course, you need everyone on board. It's like, it's not going to happen. Like, how would you even enforce things like that? But it would be nice if, I don't know, at some point ever, companies would take responsibility for the damage they're doing. Any other questions? There's a question here. I think a good first step would be re-electing Donald Trump as president and watching them flush their country down the toilet. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of power in the hands of American AI. The EU uses this AI Act, and it causes us to lose out. And you know what? I'm a cybersecurity nerd. I don't have a good answer for you on geopolitics. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know how we can teach people to be responsible. Like, I'm in cybersecurity. I understand that if I cross a line, I get fired and I never get hired again. This has been drilled into me for a very long time. How do we teach responsibility to people who are chronically irresponsible? That's outside my skill set. You saw my Venn diagram. You know what I can talk about, and global geopolitics is not on it. So does someone have a question I can answer? Like, yes.
Your opinion on AI 2027?
My opinion on AI in 2027?
The research paper.
I haven't read it. Again, I need a question I can answer, people. How about here?
What about the penguin? He's not a penguin.
The penguins? Well, that is not a penguin. This is a liar. As you can see, this is of the genus Aptenodytes. The actual last penguin was the great auk, which became extinct in the 1850s. The emperor penguin was named for its resemblance to the great auk. It is not a penguin. On a personal note, I put a secret ending in the end of every one of my presentations, and it makes me so happy when someone unlocks it. Thank you so much. That's just like... You're like the third group of people ever to ask a question that gets to the secret ending, and that makes me so happy. You have a question?
Yes. So now you talked a lot about the effect of AI going wild on the internet and acting without the human in the loop. But especially when you have a human in the loop, you're also offloading a lot of your own cognitive ability to the AI.
You are, and like I recently finished my master's degree. I'm friends with a couple of teachers, and they're just so frustrated that they're getting homework through that's like, it's just AI, and it all looks the same. It's like, it's not just in this industry. People are offloading their entire cognitive process onto ChatGPT, and it leads to memes like the whole, it's 2040 and ChatGPT is down and someone asks for your name. It's like, yeah, I agree. You have more.
At that point, are you really talking about the dead internet theory, or is it more like a dead cognitive ability theory? You're replacing not just the content on the internet, but the content in yourself.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to have to rename my presentation. No, but I mean, these things go hand in hand. The idea that the cognitive ability would decline is, you know, at the moment, people are recognizing and acknowledging AI-generated crap. Like if you go on meme websites, people will call out AI slop. And these things go hand in hand. As it gets higher, either people will continue to upvote this crap, leading to a higher cognitive lower cognitive engagement, or they will become aware of it and start pushing away from that. So I don't think these things are separate. I think I can use myself as an example. I put my crayon picture in here. I'm not an artistic person. I use AI to do something I can't or don't want to. Like, I use AI to make art and to answer emails to people who are really annoying. Those are my use cases. I get to keep the things that I enjoy. At the point you start offloading everything to AI, that's a problem. But that's a problem on an individual level. And again, that's an issue I don't have a solution for. I don't have a framework for that. The entire educational industry is currently drowning because of that issue. It's not something I can solve on a stage in Sweden. One more question. In a way, I guess it's not an individual problem there when it's enforced, and the forced use of AI is a very good point that I've been meaning to add into this slide deck because, you know, I think it was Klarna. Are they a Swedish company? They, you know, replaced a load of people. They kicked out a load of people and then rehired them because apparently AI wasn't as great as it was. But this is a glimpse into the future. This is what's happening across the board. They're not going to say these are AI layoffs. They're just going to quietly find excuses to remove the people who aren't adapting to AI. We see it across the industry. Like, you know, there are different. I'm in security. I'm the only person I know in security who tries to embrace AI. Everyone else doesn't because, well, it can be awful. And that's fine. That's fine as a view. But is the security industry supposed to just wait and like not take advantage of this tool? It's like, so I'd say yes, it's not an individual problem, but also it is because, you know, children are using this in school. Master's theses are being written almost entirely with AI. We're making ourselves stupid, and that's unfortunate. Question over here. Gargoyle, it comes from the French, I believe, gargoyle meaning throat. A gargoyle is a water feature, so it has to have some kind of water spouting out of its mouth or some other orifice. Let's not go there. But that's what a gargoyle is, whereas a grotesque is just a statue of some monster attached to a cathedral. No special ending for you, though, I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you. Over here. I wouldn't say new threats. I think what we're worried about so far is accelerating threats. There, to my mind, hasn't been satisfactory evidence for AI-based malware, for example. There have been some indicators that it's heading that way. There was recently a paper put out that someone just blasted because it turns out they basically said that 83% of malware groups are using AI, and it was like any of them who used AI in any capacity was considered an AI-powered cyber group, and that's just nonsense, because sure, use AI to make a phishing email. That's not new, that's just accelerated. So there's prompt injection, but to me that just falls under the same command injection I've been looking at for 2 decades. There are unsecured MCP servers, but that's just the same stupidity I've been dealing with for 2 decades. It's people who want to go fast and don't want to be responsible. So that's nothing new. It's exactly the same as we've seen. I do think we will see AI-powered malware. I'm not going to give a date, but I don't think we're that far away. I actually think we're going to end up with a kind of rug pull where we're worried about the wrong thing, and post-quantum situations start causing trouble for us first, and everyone's looking at the distracting AI bunny, and then we all of a sudden have a post-quantum cryptography problem to solve, which would be fun. Any other questions? There's a question back there that I can just see through the light. Yeah, you. Do I have time to answer this question? Cool. I get in a lot of trouble in security discussions because I think at the start of the internet, a mistake was made, and that mistake was privacy, and that sounds awful. I think in the current state, privacy is required, I think if we went back to the starting point and made a sovereign internet where the idea was a person and wasn't a username, they weren't a hidden alias, then we wouldn't have this problem with AI. Because a person would be a person. It would be, I am this person, I am this artist, here is my portfolio of work. It wouldn't be, I'm a random username dropping art, you don't know whether to trust me or not. And obviously that introduces another slew of problems, and I wouldn't advocate for I wouldn't advocate for identification on the internet as it stands, but the idea of a secondary internet, you say that and I just think like Tor, and they're just going to end up these like fractured shards of what the internet was supposed to be, maybe surrounded by things that people don't want to deal with. If there was some way to regulate it, yes, but regulation would have to come from where? From governments. Most governments tend to be quite pro-business given the profit incentives and such, so it's like, it's a theoretical yes, but I feel like as a solution, it doesn't have a solid ground in reality. Okay, maybe time for one more question if anyone has one. I don't think anyone does, so I will just say thank you.